What's happening, YouTube? Back in the day gamer here. Thanks for tuning into my channel for this episode of Halloween Game Boy games. That's right, I've been doing a lot of these Halloween videos because, to be honest, Halloween is my favorite time of the year to pair games with the season. Maybe that's because there's so many games that seem to fit. I don't know. But I happen to have a lot of them here today. And aside from that whole Halloween thing, this time of year is the time of year where I actually play my handheld the most. Because, you know, summer's over, starting to get cold. You still get a couple nice, really nice days here and there like this one. And it gets you thinking, you know what? Pretty soon it's going to be snowy. We're going to be trapped inside. We better get outside and do something. What are you going to do? I don't know. Go for a walk in the woods, fire up a cigar, take the Game Boy with you, play some games. So here we are, actually out in the woods. Got my original Game Boy Color case from back in the day. I like to show this sucker off when I can. It's that lime green pocket Game Boy Color that I've had since back in the day. I don't fire that one up that often. It's usually the old Game Boy Advance because, I don't know, it fits better in my hand. It's color. It plays Game Boy Advance games too. But today we're not talking about Game Boy Advance. We're talking about Game Boy. Which game are we going to start with? We've got 5 of them here. These aren't the best 5. They certainly aren't the 5 you're thinking of. There's no Castlevania in here. There's no Gremlins. There's no Gargoyle's Quest. But there are some good ones. First off, we're gonna go alphabetical. So that's why we're gonna start with this one. There's no order other than alphabetical. The one we're starting with, Addams Family. All right, you might be saying to yourself, doesn't that game suck? It kind of sucks. It doesn't suck. It could be better. It could be worse. It's got some things going for it. You know, the graphics are solid for a Game Boy game. They're not reinventing the wheel, but they're there. Some of the audio is great. The intro song with the Addams Family, that song's good. Some of the audio is horribly painful, like when there's bats on the screen and they make that horrible grinding noise. I'm not going to put it on here because it's horrible, but the game itself, it's not bad. It's similar to its 8 and 16-bit counterpart. I don't think it's the same. It can't be. The other games are too big. No, it's not the same, but it's similar. It's the dumbed-down version for the Game Boy because we're talking about Game Boy games. That's why. Next up is a game far superior to that one. It's also about a movie that is good. The movie's not as good as Addams Family, but the game is far better, and that is Beetlejuice. So this is probably a game you didn't know existed on the Game Boy. That's right. You knew it existed on the Nintendo, but that game is shit. The Game Boy version is not the same at all. This one's solid. It is similar to the Addams Family game, but much less shitty. You're still roaming around in the haunted house, going up and down the stairs, in and out the doors. There's lots of these mini boss battles. Control's good. The graphics are even a notch better than the Addams Family game. Music's good as well. Sometime back I randomly heard about this one. Just assumed it was like the NES. When I found out it wasn't, had to get it for myself and have had lots of fun with it. Got pretty far, haven't beat it yet, but we don't want to go ahead and finish our backlog, right? The rest of these games are the Game Boy Color. That's still Game Boy. Game Boy's in the name, plays in the Game Boy, cartridges are the same size. It's still Game Boy. This one is pretty obscure. I've had it for a few years. Never hear anything about it. You probably don't know anything about it until now. Halloween Racer. Pretty appropriate for the season, huh? So this is a 8-bit racer. It's a lot like Mario Kart. Not nearly as good. Definitely has the Halloween theme. You got different characters to play. You got the enemies. You got the tracks. This game by no means is groundbreaking, but it's clearly theme appropriate and it's not horrible. It's not great. It's not great, but it's not horrible. It's definitely worth playing. If Game Boy had some way to play 2 players, no, still wouldn't be great. Moving on to this game, I know you never heard of, because by the looks of it, I don't know, it was probably a shitty cartoon, but the game itself still may qualify as shitty, but it's good to play during this season. Toonsylvania. I really like that name. So I probably should have done my homework, because I am imagining this was an adaptation of some cartoon, but I don't care, because the name itself drew me in, and when I peeked at some gameplay, I wasn't blown away, but I said, yeah, I want that. Had it for a couple years, toss it in at this time of the year. Haven't played it yet this season, but it's actually going in there right now, because you're looking at the gameplay for it. It's not horrible, but it's not a great game. I know I've said that about several of these games, so I hope you're not mad at me for making this video about mostly shitty games. Last up is another game that I just heard of and had to get it because it clearly fits the theme of the season and for this video, and I'm doubting you heard about this one either. That's what I like about YouTube. Finding out about games you didn't really know about. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're in the middle. That's where this one is. Dracula, Crazy Vampire. So when I first saw somebody doing a video on this game, I was immediately all over it because it looked really cool. I mean, granted, it's on Game Boy Color, so the graphics aren't gonna blow you away, but they don't suck, they're good. I really like the looks of them. In the video they couldn't get past like the first minute of the game, so that kind of turned me off to it, but I was like, you know what? I think I can play video games better than these clowns, so I got it. Now, back in the day, gamer isn't about spoilers and doesn't look things up, so I'm not gonna tell you how. But if you do get your hands on this game, you'll know the part that I mean, because yeah, you'll probably be stuck at it for a second, and then you won't be, and then you'll be like, hey, he was right. So that's 5 games to play on the Game Boy for this Halloween season. 4 of them you probably have never heard of before, so you're welcome for telling you about 2 of them. So the other 2 weren't that good. But if you were paying attention, you'll notice that they weren't actually in alphabetical order, because when I put them in my pocket and pulled them out, I didn't pull them out in the right order. So if you noticed, I'm sorry. There you go, that's gonna wrap it up for this video. As always, thanks for tuning into my channel. Enjoy the Halloween season. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, possibly, right? Till next time, YouTube, happy Halloween, keep it retro. Thumbnail.